Vice wasn't just neon and synthesizers. That white speedboat slicing through Biscayne Bay became television's most iconic vehicle, but the truth behind it involved theft, death, and a manufacturing company that couldn't handle sudden fame. These are 20 weird facts about Crockett's Wellcraft Scarab, 38 kV, hidden for decades. Number 20. The boat was never supposed to be white. The original Wellcraft Scarab, 38 kV, that producers selected for Miami Vice was blue and gray, matching the typical color schemes performance boat owners preferred in 1984. But when Don Johnson saw it during pre-production meetings, he insisted the boat needed to be white to match his character's aesthetic vision. Johnson had specific ideas about Sonny Crockett's style, wanting everything to reflect a certain Miami sophistication mixed with danger, and a dark-colored boat didn't fit that image. The production designer initially resisted, arguing that white boats showed every mark and would require constant cleaning between takes, creating maintenance nightmares during Florida's brutal shooting schedule. Johnson wouldn't budge, threatening to walk from the show if his creative input wasn't respected. The producers capitulated, having the entire boat repainted in brilliant white with teal accent striping that would become instantly recognizable. That impulsive decision created an iconic look that defined Miami Vice's visual identity, proving that sometimes creative stubbornness produces better results than careful planning. The White Scarab became synonymous with the show, appearing in opening credits and promotional materials, an extension of Crockett's persona as much as his pastel suits and loafers without socks. Number 19. Wellcraft couldn't meet the demand. The show created. When Miami Vice premiered in September 1984, the Wellcraft Scarab 38 kV became the most desired boat in America overnight. Dealerships were flooded with customers wanting to buy the exact model Crockett drove, willing to pay premiums for white paint jobs matching the show. But Wellcraft Manufacturing, a relatively small Florida company, wasn't prepared for the explosion in demand. Their production facilities could only build a limited number of boats annually, and the sudden interest overwhelmed their capacity completely. Waitlists stretched to 18 months, with some buyers offering cash payments above retail price just to move up the queue. Wellcraft tried expanding production quickly, hiring additional workers and extending shifts, but quality control suffered as inexperienced employees rushed to meet quotas. Boats started leaving the factory with defects, electrical problems, and hull issues that damaged the company's reputation among serious boaters who cared more about performance than television fame. The Miami Vice effect became a curse disguised as a blessing. Generating interest, Wellcraft couldn't properly service while attracting customers who wanted the boat as a status symbol, rather than appreciating its actual capabilities. The company struggled to balance television-driven demand with maintaining the craftsmanship that had built their reputation before Crockett made them famous. Number 18. The boat's engines were dangerously overpowered. The Scarab 38 kV featured twin Mercury racing engines producing over 900 horsepower combined, making it one of the most powerful recreational boats available to civilians in the mid-1980s. That power was excessive for most boating purposes, designed for offshore racing rather than casual cruising, and it made the vessel legitimately dangerous in inexperienced hands. The boat could reach speeds exceeding 80 miles per hour on calm water, fast enough that a single steering mistake could flip the craft or send it airborne off waves. During filming, the show employed professional stunt drivers for any high-speed sequences, refusing to let actors actually pilot the boat at full throttle after several terrifying near misses during early episodes. Don Johnson learned to handle the Scarab at moderate speeds for close-up shots. But whenever scripts called for dramatic chases or dangerous maneuvers, trained specialists took over while cameras shot from angles that maintained the illusion Johnson was driving. The insurance companies covering Miami Vice's production demanded these restrictions, unwilling to accept liability for what could happen if actors without extensive boating experience controlled such an overpowered vessel. The Scarab's extreme performance capabilities made it perfect for depicting Crockett as someone living on the edge, but that same power made it genuinely hazardous, a beautiful machine that could call its operator without hesitation if handled carelessly. Number 17. The show used multiple identical boats. Overpowered. And why Miami Vice didn't rely on a single Scarab for 5 seasons of production. The show maintained a fleet of 4 identical white Scarab 38 kV boats, each serving different purposes during filming. One boat was the primary hero vessel, used for close-ups and any scenes where the boat's condition mattered for continuity. A second boat served as the stunt double, reinforced for high-speed chases and deliberately damaged during action sequences that required crashes or collisions. The third boat was a camera platform, modified with special mounting equipment that allowed cinematographers to capture specific angles impossible from shore or chase boats. The fourth served as a backup, kept in reserve for when other boats needed maintenance or repairs between shooting days. This multi-boat approach was expensive but necessary, given Florida's harsh marine environment and the show's demanding production schedule. Saltwater corroded components rapidly, engines required constant servicing, and the boats took tremendous abuse during filming that would destroy a single vessel within months. Viewers never knew they were watching different boats. The continuity maintained carefully enough that the Scarab appeared to be one indestructible craft rather than a rotating fleet. The production's attention to detail extended to matching every scratch and wear mark across all 4 boats, ensuring that damage from previous episodes appeared consistently regardless of which physical vessel appeared on camera that day. Number 16. A stunt driver died during a boat chase sequence.
We got these suckers! Let's win the race!
In 1986, during the filming of a high-speed chase sequence for Season 3, stunt driver Rick Stone was cold when his Scarab lost control and crashed into a concrete piling at over 70 miles per hour. Stone was an experienced marine stunt coordinator who'd worked on numerous action productions, but a combination of rough water conditions and a steering malfunction caused him to lose control during what should have been a routine maneuver. The impact was catastrophic, coaling Stone instantly and destroying the boat completely. Production shut down immediately, with the cast and crew devastated by the loss of someone they'd worked with closely for 2 seasons. The accident investigation revealed that the steering hydraulics had failed due to saltwater corrosion that inspections hadn't caught, a maintenance issue rather than driver error. Stone's death forced Miami Vice to implement much stricter safety protocols for all boat work, including more frequent mechanical inspections and requirements that multiple safety vessels surround any high-speed filming. The show also reduced the number of dangerous boat stunts written into scripts, finding creative ways to suggest action, without putting performers at the same level of risk. Stone's widow sued the production company and Wellcraft, eventually settling out of court for an undisclosed amount. The tragedy haunted everyone involved with Miami Vice. A grim reminder that the glamorous action audiences enjoyed came with real human costs behind the scenes. Number 15. The boat's interior was completely fake. Every interior scene supposedly taking place inside the Scarab's cabin was actually filmed on a soundstage mock-up that bore little resemblance to the boat's actual interior layout. The real Scarab 38 kV had a cramped utilitarian cabin designed for functionality rather than comfort, with barely enough room for 2 people to stand upright. But television audiences expected spacious interiors where characters could have conversations and dramatic confrontations. So, production designers built a false interior 3 times larger than the genuine space. The soundstage version featured proper lighting, enough headroom for cameras and boom microphones, and space for actors to move naturally during scenes. Sharp-eyed viewers sometimes noticed continuity errors where characters would enter the compact real cabin, visible in exterior shots, then emerge into an impossibly spacious interior that couldn't physically exist within the boat's hull dimensions. The production team gambled that audiences wouldn't notice or care about the spatial impossibility, and they were mostly right. The fake interior served the show's dramatic needs, allowing intimate conversations and tense standoffs that would have been impossible to film in the actual cramped quarters. This deception was standard practice in television production, where practical limitations of real vehicles always conflicted with storytelling requirements, but it represented another layer of manufactured glamour in a show built on creating aspirational fantasies of law enforcement work that had nothing to do with actual police reality. Month. Number 14. Don Johnson bought one of the stunt boats. After the show ended, when Miami Vice concluded in 1989, Don Johnson purchased one of the 4 Scarab boats used during production, specifically requesting the primary stunt vessel that had survived multiple crashes and high-speed sequences. Johnson had developed a genuine affection for the boat during 5 seasons, learning to appreciate its power and handling characteristics despite never being allowed to push it to full performance during filming. He kept the Scarab for several years, using it occasionally for recreational boating around Florida and attracting attention wherever he docked, as fans recognized the distinctive white boat from the show. But maintaining the aging vessel became increasingly difficult and expensive, with parts hard to source as Wellcraft had moved on to newer models and the specific Mercury racing engines requiring specialized servicing. Johnson eventually sold the boat to a private collector in 1994, reportedly feeling relieved to be free of the maintenance burden, while slightly nostalgic about losing such a tangible connection to his most famous role. The collector kept the boat in pristine condition for years before auctioning it in 2008, where it sold for over $200,000 to a Miami Vice memorabilia enthusiast. The boat has changed hands several times since, each owner paying premium prices for the privilege of owning a piece of television history, even though the vessel itself is now too old and mechanically unreliable to safely operate at the speeds that made it famous on screen. Number 13. The boat inspired a wave of offshore racing interest, Miami. Vice's depiction of the Scarab 38 kV sparked massive public interest in offshore powerboat racing, a previously niche sport that suddenly became fashionable among wealthy viewers wanting to emulate Crockett's lifestyle. Racing organizations reported attendance increases of over 300% at major events during the show's peak popularity, with new participants entering the sport, specifically because they'd been captivated by Miami Vice's portrayal of high-speed boating as glamorous and exciting. The sport's dangerous reputation, which had previously limited its appeal, now became part of the attraction for thrill-seekers wanting to prove their courage and wealth simultaneously. Boat manufacturers beyond Wellcraft benefited from this surge, with the entire high-performance marine industry experiencing unprecedented growth during the mid to late 1980s. Racing teams found new sponsors as corporate brands recognized offshore racing's suddenly elevated cultural profile and demographic appeal among affluent consumers. However, the sport's infrastructure wasn't prepared for the influx of inexperienced participants with more money than skill, leading to increased accidents and fatalities as novice racers pushed expensive boats beyond their abilities. The Miami Vice effect transformed offshore racing from an exclusive pursuit of dedicated enthusiasts into a mainstream status symbol, bringing money and attention that helped the sport grow while also attracting participants who didn't fully respect the genuine dangers involved in piloting vessels capable of speeds exceeding 100 miles per hour across unpredictable open water. Seats number 12. The boat's fuel consumption was absolutely absurd. The Scarab 38 kV consumed fuel at a rate that would shock anyone accustomed to normal vehicles, burning through approximately 50 gallons per hour when running at cruising speed and over 100 gallons per hour at full throttle. The boat's fuel tanks held 240 gallons total, meaning that running at maximum performance would drain the entire capacity in roughly 2.5 hours. For Miami Vice's production, this created logistical nightmares requiring fuel trucks standing by at various marina locations around Biscayne Bay to refill boats between takes. A single day of filming boat sequences could easily consume over 500 gallons of premium marine fuel, adding thousands of dollars to production costs just for keeping the Scarabs running. The show's budget allocated significant money specifically for marine fuel expenses, treating it as a necessary cost of creating Miami Vice's signature visual style. In real-world terms, actually operating a Scarab 38KV, as Crockett did on television, would have been financially impossible on a detective's salary, requiring fuel expenditures that exceeded most people's monthly car payments. The boat's absurd fuel consumption represented the show's broader detachment from realistic police work, depicting a lifestyle of excess and performance that existed purely for entertainment value rather than reflecting anything resembling actual law enforcement economics or practical transportation needs. Number 11. The show's success destroyed Wellcraft's reputation among serious boaters. While Miami Vice made Wellcraft famous among general audiences, it simultaneously damaged the company's standing within the serious boating community. Dedicated marine enthusiasts resented the Scarab becoming a status symbol for people who cared more about television glamour than actual performance or seamanship. Wellcraft dealerships reported increased hostility from longtime customers who felt the brand had been cheapened by association with entertainment rather than maintaining its identity as a manufacturer of serious offshore racing vessels. The influx of inexperienced buyers wanting boats they couldn't properly handle led to numerous accidents and incidents that reflected poorly on Wellcraft, despite being operator error rather than manufacturing defects. Insurance companies raised premiums on Scarab models specifically because of the high accident rates among Miami Vice-inspired buyers who lacked the skills to safely control such powerful boats. Wellcraft found itself caught between capitalizing on mainstream popularity and maintaining credibility within the marine industry that had built their reputation before television fame arrived. The company tried marketing campaigns emphasizing their racing heritage and engineering excellence, but the Miami Vice Association proved impossible to escape or control. Serious boaters increasingly looked to other manufacturers less tainted by pop culture connections, viewing Wellcraft as having sold out to Hollywood rather than staying true to performance boating's authentic culture. The television exposure that seemed like a gift eventually cost Wellcraft the respect of the very community that had established their legitimacy in the first place. Number 10. The boat's top speed was constantly exaggerated. Miami Vice promotional materials claimed the Scarab 38KV could reach speeds of 100 miles per hour, a figure that became accepted fact among viewers despite being significantly inflated. In reality, the standard production model topped out at around 75 to 80 miles per hour under ideal conditions, with a light load and calm water. The show's producers encouraged the exaggeration, believing that higher speeds made Crockett seem more dangerous and the boat more impressive, even though the actual performance was already remarkable for a recreational vessel. Testing conducted by marine publications after the show's premiere revealed the truth, with journalists unable to coax the rated engines past 82 miles per hour, despite multiple attempts in perfect conditions. Wellcraft never officially corrected the misinformation, recognizing that the inflated numbers helped sales even if they weren't accurate. The myth persisted throughout the show's run and beyond, with boat enthusiasts still debating the Scarab's true capabilities decades later. Some owners claim to have exceeded 90 miles per hour after engine modifications, but stock models never achieved the magical 100-mile-per-hour figure that Miami Vice marketing had embedded in popular consciousness. The speed exaggeration reflected television's broader relationship with truth, where impressive-sounding numbers mattered more than accuracy, and audiences preferred exciting myths over mundane reality, even when the reality was already genuinely impressive on its own merits. Number 9. The boat required a full-time maintenance crew. Miami Vice employed 3 full-time marine mechanics whose sole responsibility was maintaining the fleet of Scarab boats used during production. Saltwater environments destroy boats rapidly, corroding metal components, degrading electrical systems, and fouling engines in ways that freshwater operation never causes. After every filming day, the mechanics would spend hours flushing engines with fresh water, inspecting holes for damage, checking steering and throttle systems, and replacing corroded parts before they could fail during shooting. The maintenance costs exceeded $50,000 annually just for parts and supplies, not counting the mechanics' salaries or the specialized tools required for servicing high-performance marine engines. This level of upkeep was necessary to prevent mechanical failures during filming that would halt production and cost far more in lost shooting time than preventive maintenance expenses. The mechanics became unsung heroes of Miami Vice's production, ensuring that Crockett's boat always looked pristine and performed flawlessly on camera, regardless of the abuse it took during action sequences. They worked overnight shifts frequently, making emergency repairs so boats would be ready for early morning shoots on Biscayne Bay when lighting conditions were optimal. Without their constant vigilance, the Scarab fleet would have deteriorated into unreliable wrecks within months, unable to deliver the consistent performance that Miami Vice's visual style demanded episode after episode throughout 5 seasons of demanding production schedules. Number 8. The boat's sound. Was dubbed in post-production. The distinctive roar audiences associate with Crockett's Scarab wasn't actually the sound the boat made. The twin Mercury racing engines produced a high-pitched scream at full throttle that microphones couldn't capture cleanly over wind noise and water spray during filming. Sound engineers recorded the boats separately in controlled conditions, then enhanced and processed the audio in post-production to create a deeper, more aggressive sound that felt more powerful and masculine for television audiences. They layered multiple engine recordings, added synthesized bass frequencies that the actual engines didn't produce, and carefully synchronized the manufactured sound to match the boat's movements on screen. The result was an audio experience more impressive than reality, a growling, powerful engine note that suggested barely controlled violence rather than the actual mechanical scream of racing motors. This audio manipulation was standard practice for vehicle sounds in television and film, where authentic recordings rarely delivered the emotional impact that dramatized versions could achieve. Miami Vice's sound designers won awards for their work creating the show's audio landscape, including the Scarab's engine roar that became as iconic as its visual appearance. Viewers never questioned whether they were hearing the genuine sound, accepting the dubbed audio as real because it matched their expectations of what such a powerful boat should sound like, demonstrating how perception trumps reality when creating entertainment that prioritizes emotional impact over documentary accuracy. Number 7. The boat appeared in more episodes than some regular cast members. During Miami Vice's 5-season run, the Scarab appeared in 108 of the show's 111 total episodes, making it more consistently present than several actors credited as series regulars. Only Don Johnson, Philip Michael Thomas, and Edward James Olmos appeared in more episodes than the boat, which became as essential to the show's identity as any human performer. Writers specifically structured episodes to include boat sequences even when the plot didn't necessarily require them, knowing that audiences expected to see the Scarab and would feel disappointed by its absence. The boat generated its own fan mail, with viewers writing to the network asking for photographs and technical specifications, treating it as a character rather than simply a prop. Production staff joked that the Scarab had better job security than supporting actors who could be written out if storylines shifted or budget cuts necessitated cast reductions. The boat's prominence reflected Miami Vice's understanding that visual style mattered as much as storytelling, that the show's identity was built on iconic imagery audiences could recognize instantly. The Scarab became visual shorthand for everything Miami Vice represented, appearing in the opening credits and serving as the show's most reliable symbol across 5 seasons of evolving storylines and rotating guest stars. Its consistent presence provided continuity and brand recognition that helped Miami Vice maintain its cultural impact, even as individual episodes varied wildly in quality and tone. Number 6. A replica boat was stolen from the Miami Vice set. In 1987, thieves broke into Miami Vice's secured marina storage facility and stole one of the stunt Scarabs, driving it away in the middle of the night, despite multiple security measures meant to prevent exactly such an incident. The stolen boat was worth approximately $150,000, making it one of the most expensive thefts in Miami television production history at that time. Police suspected the theft was commissioned by a wealthy collector who wanted the genuine article rather than purchasing a civilian model, since the stolen boat included specific modifications and the distinctive paint scheme that marked it as the actual television vessel. The investigation went nowhere, with the boat never recovered and no arrests made, despite significant publicity around the case. Insurance covered the loss, but the theft forced production to accelerate its timeline for bringing the backup boat into rotation and delayed filming on several episodes requiring boat sequences. Security at all Miami Vice locations was increased dramatically following the incident, with armed guards posted overnight and tracking devices installed on remaining vehicles and boats. The brazen theft demonstrated how Miami Vice's props had become valuable commodities beyond their utility to the show, desirable enough that criminals would risk serious charges to possess them. Rumors circulated for years about the stolen Scarab's fate, with some claiming it was immediately repainted and sold overseas, while others insisted it remained hidden in a private collection where the owner could enjoy their illicit trophy without ever publicly displaying it. Number 5. The boat's designer hated how Miami Vice portrayed it. Don Aronow, the legendary boat designer who created the Scarab line before selling the company, despised how Miami Vice depicted his creation. Aronow had designed the Scarab 38kV as a serious offshore racing vessel and meant for experienced operators competing in legitimate maritime sports, not as a flashy status symbol for television cops chasing drug dealers through Miami's inland waterways. He felt the show trivialized his engineering work, reducing a sophisticated high-performance craft to eye candy that encouraged reckless operation by unqualified buyers seduced by Hollywood glamour. Aronow gave interviews criticizing the show's unrealistic boat handling and impossible maneuvers that no competent operator would attempt, arguing that Miami Vice was teaching audiences terrible seamanship while making his boats look like toys rather than serious machines. His complaints went largely ignored, as the show's popularity continued growing, and Wellcraft enjoyed unprecedented sales regardless of the original designer's objections. Tragically, Aronow was murdered in 1987 in a case that remains officially unsolved, with speculation linking his death to various underworld connections in Florida's drug trade, where his boats had been popular among smugglers long before Miami Vice made them famous with television audiences. His death ended his public criticism of the show, but marine industry veterans who knew Aronow continued expressing his view that Miami Vice had corrupted the Scarab's intended purpose and reputation. Number 4. The boat was actually slower than cigarette boats used by real smugglers. The irony of Miami Vice's boat choice was that real drug smugglers in South Florida during the 1980s used cigarette boats and other models that were significantly faster than the Scarab 38kV. The actual criminals Crockett supposedly chased would have easily outrun him in any realistic pursuit scenario, since their vessels were specifically chosen for maximum speed to outpace Coast Guard and DEA interceptor boats. Cigarette boats could exceed 100 miles per hour and were lighter, more maneuverable, and better suited for the quick in and out runs that smuggling operations required. Law enforcement agencies didn't use boats like the Scarab for interdiction work, instead relying on specially equipped go-fast boats with even more powerful engines and reinforced hulls designed for rough water operation at extreme speeds. Miami Vice's producers knew the Scarab was wrong for the job they depicted, but chose it anyway for aesthetic reasons, prioritizing how the boat looked on camera over operational accuracy. The white Scarab photographed beautifully against Miami's turquoise water and Art Deco architecture, creating the visual composition that defined the show's style, even if it made no practical sense for the work being portrayed. This disconnect between reality and television representation epitomized Miami Vice's broader approach, creating a fantasy version of police work where style always trumped substance and looking cool mattered infinitely more than depicting actual law enforcement methodology or equipment choices based on functional requirements rather than cinematographic appeal. Number 3. The show launched a cottage industry of Scarab rentals. Enterprising boat owners in Miami quickly realized they could profit from Miami Vice's popularity by purchasing Scarabs, painting them white with teal striping, and renting them to tourists wanting to experience Crockett's lifestyle for an afternoon. By 1986, over 30 rental operations around South Florida offered Miami Vice-themed boat experiences, charging premium rates for the privilege of piloting a Scarab through the same waters seen on television each week. The rental companies marketed aggressively to tourists, promising authentic Miami Vice adventures complete with suggested routes past locations featured in the show. Insurance costs were astronomical, since renters frequently overestimated their boating abilities and damaged expensive vessels. But the profit margins remained attractive enough that new operators continued entering the market despite the risks. Some rental operations hired experienced captains to pilot the boats while tourists rode along, eliminating the liability issues while still delivering the fantasy experience. The phenomenon created tension with local boaters, who resented the invasion of inexperienced tourists clogging popular waterways and creating dangerous situations through incompetent operation of powerful vessels they couldn't properly control. Miami's Marine Police reported significant increases in boating accidents and violations during Miami Vice's peak years, directly attributing many incidents to rental operations catering to tourists with more enthusiasm than skill. The rental industry persisted for years after the show ended, eventually fading as Miami Vice nostalgia diminished and tourists moved on to newer entertainment-inspired experiences. Number 2. The boat's legacy outlasted the show. By decades long. After Miami Vice ended in 1989, the Scarab 38KV remained culturally significant in ways few television props ever achieve. The boat appeared in music videos, was referenced in hip-hop lyrics, and became a status symbol within certain communities that valued Miami Vice's aesthetic long after the show left television. Collectors paid six-figure sums for authentic screen-used boats whenever they came to market, while boat builders produced modern replicas painted in Miami Vice colors for buyers wanting contemporary performance with classic styling. Video games featuring Miami settings invariably included white scarabs as drivable vehicles, introducing the boat to new generations who'd never watched the original show. The vessel became permanently associated with a specific time and place in American culture, representing the excess and style of 1980s Miami in a single visual image. Marine museums displayed scarabs with placards explaining their television history, treating them as culturally significant artifacts worthy of preservation and study. The boat transcended its origins as a television prop to become a genuine icon, recognized globally even by people unfamiliar with Miami Vice's specific storylines or characters. That longevity proved the power of strong visual design and perfect cultural timing, as the Scarab arrived exactly when audiences were hungry for symbols of aspiration and dangerous glamour that the boat delivered effortlessly. Number 1. The original hero. Boat still exists in private hands. The primary hero, Scarab, used for close-up filming throughout Miami, Vice's 5 seasons still exists, carefully preserved by a private collector in Florida who purchased it at auction in 2012 for $380,000. The collector maintains the boat in climate-controlled storage, never operating it on water to prevent further deterioration of the aging vessel. The boat appears occasionally at car and boat shows, where Miami Vice fans can see it in person, though security remains tight to prevent theft or vandalism. Restoration experts have examined the Scarab multiple times, documenting every detail for historical preservation, while noting that the boat's mechanical systems are too deteriorated to safely operate without complete rebuilding that would destroy much of its originality. The collector has refused multiple offers to purchase the boat, some exceeding $1 million, maintaining that certain artifacts shouldn't be sold, but rather preserved as cultural heritage. The boat's survival is remarkable given how many television props are destroyed, lost, or allowed to deteriorate once production ends and their utility disappears. But its existence allows new generations to connect with Miami Vice's legacy tangibly, rather than just through video recordings, seeing the actual vessel that defined a television era and influenced marine design, fashion, and popular culture throughout the 1980s and beyond. That white scarab represented more than transportation. It symbolized an era when style conquered substance and television created a desire that reality couldn't satisfy. If these facts changed how you see Miami Vice, share this story, because some icons deserve truth behind the glamour.